Hey, hey. That's some catchy music, isn't it?
That was that was kind of jamming music there.
It was
Well, I like it when he goes,
toe-tapping
"Huh."
music.
Well,
Like the gun cranks, my
like
God.
the Gun Cranks. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Gun Cranks Live. It's Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Mountain, and we're back. And I want to call a party foul. I've got an empty cup and the other guys don't. And I don't think that's fair. But anyway, we're going to be moving on. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent
I'm
Wheat with
not
and you're
saying
not.
anything. No, I am going to say one thing. There are no guns within 50 yards of here. And
Really?
beyond that, I'm not saying anything.
Okay. Well, anyway, as I was saying, Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, that's moi. That is Tom McHale. You'd think I'd been drinking. Tom McHale, American Handgunner editor, and Roy Huntington, retired double knot spy secret agent. Hey guys, how's it going?
He moved up in the world. Extraordinary assignments editor.
Yes.
I'm not anything now. Yeah.
Every time I hear that, I think of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Wasn't that like a superhero movie or something?
I think so.
What I keep telling myself. Yep. What I do now, though, is mow the west pasture. If you look behind me, you'll see my handiwork, by golly.
Well, Roy, it looks like your stream is being operated by hamsters tonight. You're kind of doing the robot. So
no, he's on his riding mower. That's why.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, if you drop out, we'll continue on bravely on the face of this Gun Cranks Live. So anyway, we've had a busy week. AmericanCop.com is starting up tomorrow for real. And we've been charging ahead on that. And you guys were the first ones to see the American Cop t-shirt that says defund the mass media last week. And we got in all kinds of trouble, but we're crazy that way. We wanted to show the world, and now they're selling like hotcakes.
Hey, do you feel like breaking some rules?
Oh yeah.
Let's launch American Cop right now.
Okay.
It's launched.
Did you just do it right now? How cool.
Yeah. AmericanCop.com.
World premiere right here. How about that? Very cool.
That was easy, wasn't it?
Yeah. So once you're done watching us, go to AmericanCop.com and you can order the t-shirts. It's right there up tip top. You can read all kinds of stuff. And it's not just for cops. It's what do we call it? It's where what's the little
the cop on the beat meets the man on the street.
On the street. I knew.
Now we got to give credit for that. We have to give proper credit. So go ahead.
That was Denny Hansen, our editor. He's going to be handling American Cop. It's kind of a collaborative effort right now, but it's going to be Denny's baby. A lot of you know Denny. He's been at the helm of SWAT magazine that I used to write for. He was the editor there for 32 years, and unfortunately, they had to go by the wayside. But we jumped at the chance to bring him on board and
snagged him up,
and we got big plans for AmericanCop.com. And I'm telling you, check out those shirts. You want to offend your favorite liberal or wear it to court or, flying or something, defund the mass media. I think it's kind of fun. It also says back the blue. So we all back the blue here, and we want to defund the mass media, but not.
If you guys read about an incident next week in an airport, it's me. Because I think I'm going to be wearing my defund the mainstream media back the blue shirt. So
that'll be cool.
Bail me out.
Excuse me. Well, our topic tonight is something that Tom and I have nearly come to a fist fight over, and not really, but we got all sideways with each other about it. And Roy had to tell the kids to go to their rooms. Tonight, we're going to talk about a situation that, Tom, I'll let you do the intro because this actually was inspired by a reader letter.
Yeah, and there was no fighting. Once you realized you were wrong, everything was cool. So it was easy. No, but seriously, let's set this up real quick.
Open your letter. My letter opener, as close as I got right now.
You're gonna punch me in the throat. Yes. No, we have a columnist in American Handgunner, Tiger McKee. A lot of people probably know that name. He runs Shoot Right. He's one of the top on your hand guys in the country as far as tactics and self-defense training, way up there. Anyway, so he wrote a column, and can't go through all the details, but it basically said, hey, if you run across a third party encounter, two people beating on each other or shooting at each other, don't get in the middle of it. Back up, call 911, get more help coming, right? Don't insert yourself. So anyway, so that was kind of the gist of the article. And we got one letter in particular, a letter to the editor saying how irresponsible it was that we had someone giving that kind of poor advice, because he would not only get involved, he would not want to have the blood of an innocent, on his hands. And if nothing else, he would hold everybody at gunpoint until the police came and sorted things out. So that's what kind of started this discussion. Go.
Yeah, that'd work out well, wouldn't it? Hold everybody at gunpoint.
Yeah, it works out well all the time. Like, what if they don't listen to you? Do you shoot them?
Well, that's
which one? Which one do you shoot?
I've had it happen. I'm sure Roy's had it happen. There are just people out there. You point a gun at them and they go, "What are you going to do? Shoot me?" And then you're like,
"Yeah,
well, that's a good question. What am I going to do now?"
Maybe
now the fight is going to start. So there are folks out there that really don't care if you're pointing a gun at them at all. So,
well, and you have to remember, should you be pointing a gun at them? If two people are fist fighting and you get out of your car and draw your gun on them, well, guess who may be in danger of being charged with brandishing a weapon or assault with a deadly weapon?
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have to know the laws.
So what about pepper spray? And the reason I asked that is we had a very early comment before the show even started, just based on the title, from Vic. Actually, it's from Vic Vapor. And when you hear this comment, that name makes a whole lot of sense with the comment. He says, spray everyone with pepper spray and let someone else sort it out. So,
well, that's kind of
one option.
Yeah. Well, that thing when as young cops, the old guys would tell us, don't get in a big hurry to go to the bar fight. Let them fight it out, and then we just arrest the survivor. And there's, I guess, a little bit of wisdom there too.
That's right.
After they warn themselves out. But no, in all seriousness, we did argue about it because it's one of those things it's hard to put into you can what if this thing to death. Like Tom and I were talking today. Well, if it's baby murder in progress, I think most folks really would jump in and should jump in.
Yeah.
But if it's a couple of big dudes fighting over a parking space, why put yourself at risk?
Yeah. Well, that's the crux of the matter, right? It all depends.
Yeah. And that was one of Tiger's main points, I think, is the fact that, do you risk your family's livelihood? Do you risk your money, your retirement, your life for two meth heads who are fighting over a parking place? No, you don't.
Or involved in a crash in front of your house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's funny. Susie and I told her what the show was, and we were just talking about that. And I told her, I said, we will not do that ever again. It's like
if people didn't catch that story, give them the short Reader's Digest version of just a couple of weeks ago.
We have neighbors that live up top by the road, and Susie said, she's a real nice lady. She's got a bunch of kids. Susie said, look, if there's a problem, call, and we'll come up and give you a hand. Well, she called Susie's phone and said somebody had an accident out front of their house, and there was a domestic violence thing going on. And so that's one of those things where you say, okay, well, is this really a domestic violence? Is some woman getting her clock cleaned by some jerk? So Susie and I, geared up and zoomed up in the Easy Go, and it ended up being basically two crystal meth addicts, a male and a female, had a bit of a fender bender up there against a sign or something. And then they were yelling and screaming at each other. And so I basically told them to take their stuff and go someplace else and do it. But the whole time I kept thinking, why am I even standing here? Why I shouldn't be involved. So really, I think in retrospect, we should have just gone up, seen what was going on. There was no blood, there was no back off, wait for the sheriff to come and then point and say, he did it. And that's what you should do. And we broke the rule.
So if you had taken the advice to protect the innocent, which one of the two was the innocent in that situation?
That's the rub.
That was a trick question. Sorry.
It was, and it was too tricky for me, by golly. Your baby beating up versus two rascals having at it is certainly both ends of the spectrum. Brent, I know you used to do this. Tom, you probably do it too. I used to play what if. I still do constantly. You know, like when you're driving your car, what if that motorcycle guy crashed into the tree? What would I do right now? You know, what if I'm in a bank and I would say, you know, what would I do right now if three guys walked in the door and pulled guns out? You know, and so while it's not really training it, you at least sort of get thinking about it. And then that way, when it happens, you can kind of go, oh, I've kind of thought about this before. And then you've got at least some base that you can work on. And so these situations are a lot like that. And so you brought up the bar fight. So if you're in a bar and two guys start duking it out over there, we'll be thinking about what you're going to do beforehand, you know, and then act accordingly.
I'd probably have the bartender add my tab to theirs, you know,
and then leave.
Yeah.
And then leave. Yeah.
If they left nice stuff laying there while they're fighting, you steal it and run. But no, anyway, no, I think we are all kind of on the same thing here. You know, baby murder. Yes. A couple of dudes duking it out. Nah, but let's talk the middle ground, because typically, you know, that's where the problem lies, is that, oh boy, do I or don't I? And again, there's no hard and fast rule. I look at it personally. I would, you know, again, I wouldn't get involved, but if I see where it looks like in our state, imminent bodily harm, and bodily harm being defined as unconsciousness or death or risk of death. If I see somebody, the victim, and they may have been the aggressor to start with, but if the beat down goes the other direction and now it looks like somebody's getting ready to be killed, I would consider strongly getting involved. But again, you got to think other things. Am I there with my wife and kids? There's almost no reason for me to get involved in that case. My job is to get them out of there. If
Your
I'm
mission
just there,
changes, depending on that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and what is get involved? Like when I walked up to these people who were having their little shindig in the front, the very first thing I said was, the police are called. They'll be here any second. The first thing I said to them. And you could kind of see the shift in what was going. Then they were really interested in getting out of there.
Yeah.
What you're saying is these two people are having a big fight out there, and you yell out as loud as you can and say, I've dialed 911. Police say they're 1 minute away. Yeah, well, watch how things change, you know, be thinking out of the box. And I hate to sound so, you know, cynical, or I don't know what is the right word, but if I see two rival biker gang tatted up people going at it with each other, and a pipe comes out and they start beating at each other, I mean, unless they're threatening innocent bystanders, I mean, I'm, you know, hey, the cops are coming or something. But last thing I'm going to do is pull a gun and start to get involved. And people need to think about that now, you know?
Yep.
Well, you never know. There's an individual we all know, and I'm going to be very careful not to mention any names, who found himself in exactly that situation with his family in a drive-through restaurant at night. And elsewhere in the drive-through line, two really rough-looking dudes were kind of wailing on another guy. There were guns visible, not drawn and pointed, but there were guns in play in this. And he had his family in the car, and it was getting ugly, very close to him. And he pulled out his gun, and he was drawn down to, you know, in preparation, I guess. And what became apparent over the following seconds was that the two rough-looking guys were undercover cops. The clean-cut looking guy was a violent thug, you know, and he came really close. I mean, he had a gun aimed at the two thuggy guys. He came real close, and, you know, he told me, he said, never again, you know?
Yeah.
No, there's a little dose of training, you know. It's like now he's experienced that situation, and that's gonna you know, guard his judgment from now on.
Yeah. And you know, people tend to forget your car is a much better weapon than anything you've got. I don't care if you've got a 44 extra large Magnum, you know, with exploding bullets. That car, I've watched a couple of people get hit, and one of them intentionally, and it's pretty spectacular. So you're in a nice steel envelope, and if your family's in the back, just turn and say, you can keep my McCheese, and I'm out of here. And if somebody gets in your way,
not if you're stuck in a drive-through line.
Well,
you
good
know,
point. Something
you
I
don't have that
do.
option. You're stuck.
I
In
always
the middle
go
of it.
if there's two lines of the box, the ordering box. I always go to the outside, and you can't always do this because sometimes they'll have you in a lane that with curbs. But I always go as much as I can where you've got an escape, and I always leave enough space in front that even if I got to bash the car in front of me, I can still make an angle out of there. And that doesn't matter if you're in a drive-through in traffic. That was one of my old training officers. First thing he told me is always keep a car length from the car in front of you,
Mhm.
because you can get out and you also run less risk of rear-ending people, which is, it probably saved me several rear end accidents when I looked up and, oh,
That
I'm
was
a
the
little
real
closer
reason,
than what I
right?
thought. Yeah. But it's gonna in both cases, but always leave yourself an out with a car. Always.
Yeah.
You brought up a very good point, and that's if it really was dangerous, if it really was a deadly situation, if those guys were shooting and you're in your car with your family, then you drive through and you push that car ahead of you out of the way, and you leave. And that's the line that people have a lot of trouble crossing. We've all seen it, right? It's like, well, why didn't you hit him back? Am I allowed to? Why didn't you scream bloody murder that the
Yeah.
cops were coming? Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
think to do it. There's I had a field training officer when I first got hired. He's the one that told me something. I do it to this day, which is when you're stopped in traffic at a light, at anywhere, if you can see the rear wheels of the car in front of you over your hood, then you can clear them. And so I always stop and leave that space. And I know it makes people crazy sometimes. They go, why don't you get closer? It's like, because
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I tell a
I
quick,
won't.
funny operational brief? It's not a war story. It's an operational brief. We were on a SWAT call out. A guy had a shotgun, and it was kind of a dead end road. And we had a plan to take him into custody, and things got really messed up. So long story short, he ended up at basically over the hood of the car pointing a shotgun. So another officer ended up using his car to hit the guy. Didn't kill him, but I was like right there, and he went up about 10 feet in the air and about 30 yards down range, and it resolved the situation. But I still to this day get a laugh because the newspaper described it as he was nudged by a police car, and that ended the confrontation. I've seen student pilots that logged less airtime than this guy did after he was nudged by the police car.
Nudged.
Nudged.
The sound is always remarkable too, of the car hitting the thug, the thud of the thug. Hey, that could be a new T-shirt we need to make for American Cop.
The thud of the thug.
Cherish the thud of the thug. By God.
Oh man.
So what are some of the, the actual real world stuff you guys have run into that you've had to have that, well, what do I do? Or is it just time to leave here?
I had one at a shooting range once.
Okay.
And there's multiple learnings in this one. A guy, make a long story short, a guy was with his family, wife and two younger kids. He had taken them out. They were shooting 22s. And this was a unsupervised range out in the national forest. And they'd set up all kinds of fun and cool targets, like balloons and cans and lollipops, all the good stuff, for plinking. And while they're shooting away, and they're the only ones at the range besides me. I'm at the far end. And this guy comes walking in by himself, kind of a rough looking guy with a revolver and a box of ammo. And he sets up and, eventually he starts shooting, and he starts shooting at the little kids' targets. And the father, says, "Hey, those are my kids' targets. Can you mind not shooting at those? We went a lot of trouble to set those up." And he said, "I can shoot at anything I want to," and it goes on, and it starts to escalate from there. And very quickly, the revolver guy informs everyone that he is a security officer. And so he can do what he wants because he is, yes, exactly. Salute. We all saluted because he is a security officer, at which point our dad figures out that, oh, which mall do you work at? And he starts calling him, "You're just a mall cop." And wow. So anyway, these two guys start going at it. Now I'm down at the far end of the range going, okay, dad and family here. Dad is he was right, but he's instigating and escalating a fight with a guy who's belligerent and holding a revolver in his hand. Like, this is just bad all around, And that was that was a tough situation because I was kind of packing up anyway. So I'm just going to get the heck out of here. But then you go, well, this stupid dad has his kids standing behind him. That was a weird one,
That's a real classic. Hey guys, I called the police because I think this is getting out of hand. And even if you didn't, I mean, it's not always a miracle line, but it at least throws a wrench in whatever's going on. There's that old saying about battle plans that work until the moment of first engagement.
Yeah.
And so, you can have all kinds of plans that I'm going to do this and take him down and use my taekwondo and all that till you get punched in the nose, know, and then suddenly you're going, why did I do that? I think that is a classic case, and you're right, because the father should have kept his mouth shut. Is that what's happening right now? Okay, kids, let's go pack things up. Let's leave. Lose your
yeah. You tell the kids, hey, I'll bring you back later. Bring you back tomorrow. No worries.
That's all. Just be gone.
He definitely made a huge judgment error there. Once the belligerence started, it's like, okay, fine, we're going. With your kids, get them out of there.
They make those double fists, or one of them takes their shirt off.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
when I was a little kid, one time I was, I don't know, it was 6 or 7, and I was sitting in the back seat of the family car my dad was driving, and I remember this, that we were sitting in a gas station. The guy was pumping gas, and there was another customer there, and he came up, and all I remember is he like cussed out the poor gas station attendant. And then he was, slamming on the gas pumps, and he looked at my dad. And I don't remember really what he said, but it was obviously something bad. It was really awful. And my dad was there, and my dad said, and he was a chief in the Navy, and he had seen combat and stuff, so he wasn't afraid of anything, but I think he was smart. And I remember that he actually talked this guy down. All I remember is he was going, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, boy. Yep, that's it. I'll be darned. And I vividly remember him going like this and passing money back to the guy, and then to the station attendant. Then we drove off. Of course, and I was there, and I said, Dad, why you don't let that guy talk to you like that? And these words stuck in my brain the rest of my life. And I've told this to so many people. He looked at me and he said, son, if you think I'm going to let that guy ruin our day, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I went, boy, at the time I didn't go, there's a life lesson, but that was a life lesson. And I think it's a lesson that everybody has to remember. And that situation that you talked about, Tom, was a classic case of that,
Yep.
Well, it's shocking how quickly something can escalate. I just finished editing an article today that's going to be in the upcoming Concealed Carry Annual. And Jeremy Cloud, one of our writers, was a prosecutor for a long time. And he basically shared a case story about a verbal altercation that got instantly out of hand and resulted in murder, and the guy tried to claim self-defense, but he wanted to fight, and he helped start the fight, and he shot the other guy, and he's life in prison,
I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the comment we just got. Let me read this from Ray. I know he's a cop. I know he is. He's not making this up, because you'll understand why. While working plainclothes narcotics, came across a large bar fight in the bar parking lot. My younger partner wanted to get involved. I parked across the street from the bar and watched the free entertainment. That's a cop. Yep. You got your popcorn. Hey kids, look at the fight. Look at that knucklehead. You ever seen teeth fly that far?
Well, you just brought up a good point, which is really the first thing anyone needs to do in these situations is you have to be a good witness, because that is maybe more valuable than intervention,
Yeah.
Because Brent, how many times have you been on a scene? I've certainly been there, where you drive up and there's the remains of something, right?
Yeah.
You've got a body or a crashed car or the stolen merchandise or whatever. And you look around, there's somebody standing there, and you say, can you tell me what happened?
What happened?
And they say, yes, this is they do that. But if they say, yes, this is the license plate of the car who left, it was white male, 33 years old. He was wearing, a green shirt. And it's like, you go, wow, thank you. That's what we needed right there.
I was going to say that's happened like twice though in 30 years. Normally it's, no, man, I didn't see nothing. It was these two dudes. What'd they look like? I don't know. Were they black, white, purple, green, tall, short? I don't know, man. I wasn't looking. Okay.
That's
whatever you say.
I
You know,
don't know nothing.
The other thing too is we've talked about it a couple of times, but we've never really analyzed it. Is what is the point of getting involved? Now we've talked a couple times, hold them at gunpoint, and that's what people always say. I'm going to hold them at gunpoint. Well, number one, are you the cops? I mean, I was a cop. Roy was a cop, but we're not cops anymore. We're not charged with apprehending anybody at this point. So when we start thinking about, well, I'm going to hold them at gunpoint. So really, what you got to be thinking if you're going to get involved, it's you got to be defending somebody, whether it's yourself, the victim or whatever. Or if you're going to pull a gun, that means you really probably need to be shooting somebody. So it really needs to rise to that level. So if you kind of have that mindset of, well, I'll take my gun out and hold them at gunpoint, kind of like we are talking before, you're bringing a gun into something that you better be ready to use it. And it better rise to that level of that critical of a situation, or
you just turned it into a lethal encounter is what you did.
Exactly.
You know, the unfortunate thing though is I think this is a very hard subject to talk about, and I can't tell you how many online arguments I've seen and about this, because I think everybody, and I'll say humans, have this inherent hero complex. You know, it's like it's really hard to sit there and say, chatting with strangers, well, yeah, I would walk away and call 911. You know, like, no, I would be the hero. I would, draw my gun and I would end it and I would hold them and I would solve the situation and protect the innocents and ride off into the sunset. That's kind of the vision in everybody's brain. But and it's dangerous, to think that way.
Plus, I think a lot of people, the vast majority of people, have never been in a deadly force incident or even an incident that had significant violence. I mean, was it the last fight a lot of the new cops I used to train were with their mom, and they lost that, and so you remember the older cops, they all had this sort of just look about them, and they almost, the smart ones always avoided any kind of violence if at all possible, because not only do your $120 uniform pants get torn, that's a whole nother thing right there, but how many fingers have you twisted trying to wrestle a guy into handcuffs? How many glasses have you broken, trying to take somebody into custody and stuff like that? And so that's why we would always try to avoid it if at all possible, de-escalate and avoid the conflict. And we were trained, and we had equipment, and we had backup, and so the average citizen out there, that maybe they have their gun, they may or may not have a reload, which is fine, but the odds of they going to guns is pretty remote. But there's no less lethal. You probably don't have a restraining device of any kind. You don't have a nightstick of any kind. You don't have a portable radio. You don't have any backup, and you may have your wife and kids there. So really,
Hey, Brent.
Yes.
Hold on to your shorts for a second, because you're about to fall out of your chair. You ready? Because I'm going to give you a free plug. And what I'm about to say is I listened to your most recent podcast with Steve Tarani. It was in CIA, protective services, all this stuff. And one of the things that stood out in that interview, and he was talking about, training for overseas protective deployments. And he said, a wiser guy than myself, and I'm paraphrasing, said to me, if you go to guns, you've failed. See, I was listening. How about that? So everybody listen to the podcast, Guns Magazine podcast. There's some good stuff in there on occasion.
Yeah, he was talking about on occasion. I caught that. He was talking about protective details, and I've never worked as a protective agent, but I've been to multiple classes. That's something I'd like to try sometime just to see, but I know many, many guys that do it, and Steve's done it at the highest levels internationally. And that was his point, is if it gets to that point, you got to do all that cool ninja stuff and guns and throwing stars and explosive sneakers and all that stuff, you've lost. Your job is to quickly and quietly get your protectee out of there so that nothing happens. And it's a mindset that's completely different than movies and television and wannabe, secret spies, bodyguards, protective people. Their job is to blend in, first of all, and then just disappear like a wisp of smoke. If something even looks funny, it should never get to that problem. And that's really how we should all operate.
Well, because you are an executive protection detail and you're protecting your family.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
I like how
actually
you
really
tied that all
good.
together, Roy. Thank you.
No, but that's a really good mindset. That's a very
Yeah.
good. I've never thought of it that way before. But if you are the person who's carrying the ability to deploy deadly force, then you are the executive protector of your family or whatever you're doing. And so you need to adhere by all those rules. But the scary thing is if you don't have any training, which most people don't, you know.
Yep.
So what's that old adage about? If you don't train, then when something happens, you'll revert to your training. And if you've never trained, then you revert to nothing.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
you
don't
make
believe
up
what you see
the
in the
gap in
movies.
desperation. Isn't that how it works?
That's right. Yeah.
What,
I
what's the
overcome my
term?
lack of
I'll think
training with sheer
faster.
desperation.
What is
Yeah.
it? You don't know whether to defecate or go blind. We've all seen that too. Well, let's talk about that. I've always got to work in poop jokes, right? It's the
There you
internet.
go.
We can do
Yeah.
that. We've talked about it before, but it's probably important to hit it right here now is you need to talk to your significant other, whatever person that is, your kids, your wife, your husband, your whatever you want to call your person you spend the most time with. And especially if you're the only person carrying a firearm, that you guys need to have a little bit of that stuff worked out, that if I say go left or let's leave right now, you've got it worked out that they understand it. Well, why? We just got here. I don't want to know why,
Yeah.
because
what do
we've
you
all,
see? Where is it? Tell me about it.
are you looking at that
Who
guy
is
there
it?
that looks all weird? No, we're leaving now, so it's, even with kids, age appropriate talk of, if I say we have to leave, and you'll know that tone of voice, we just have to, because I may have seen something that you haven't. Okay, Dad. And, we had that talk with our kids, and, you don't scare them with, well, there could be, trained killers out. No, you just say, look, just, if I say get in the car now with a certain tone of voice, just get in the car and I'll explain it when we get away from there. And I actually think it makes them feel better. I really do, that they feel like you're looking out for them and that you've got a plan if things go really odd.
I think you just brought up a topic.
Actually do it. And what I mean by that is, will they overcome the social inertia? So, I mean, pick your scenario. You're in a restaurant and you say, run out the kitchen door right now. That's going to cause a ruckus and everybody's going to look at you funny and go, what the hell's going on? There's like a very real human psychological element there. There's a lot of trust involved for another person to do that on a command,
Yeah.
It's
a few times I had to, it worked.
Be embarrassed.
Yeah.
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 I don't want to be embarrassed. Would you rather be dead or embarrassed?
Yeah.
You actually brought up a good topic for future Gun Cranks, which is family communication. And when my daughter was a little girl, we had a secret word. And if she was going to be picked up from school, whoever's going to get her, if she didn't know them, either had the secret word or he didn't, And so if you didn't know the secret word, she was not to go no matter what,
Yep.
And then you remember police hand signals, Brent,
Yeah, that was big on the West Coast. We really didn't do it that much.
Oh, did you? We had signals and we used them all the time. One of them, there was a signal that says, hey, everything's safe here. Yeah. Or there's a signal that, hey, I need cover from my car. Yeah. And I'm not demonstrating these because I don't think that the general public needs to know these in some situations. Yeah. But with a real simple hand signal, you could convey what the situation was and what your needs were. Well, fortunately, my wife is a cop, and so she knows all of those hand signals. And I'll tell you what, there's been many times in our 30 years together where I've walked into a room or something's happened and Susie's flashed me a hand signal, and that has alerted me that, hey, something over there is amiss, or something's going on. I need cover or whatever. And so we should talk about that later on another show. Yeah.
So
I know people would laugh, but I think it's really important. It also goes to what you're saying, Brent, about if you say, get up and leave now, if you have the ability to give a hand signal to your family and everyone gets up and leaves, it's like, that would be
I feel like I want to give a hand signal to Brent right now, but can we do that on live video? Or?
I was going to say, we had a couple around the police station. There was the one you're thinking of, and then we had the one when you walked out of the captain's office, like, You know?
I don't get it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was lieutenant. That's as far as I got. So I didn't have the chip implanted and the lobotomy. I say that with a lot of my friends being captains. So sorry, guys.
Nice.
Oh, well, get some more comments going here, folks. We know we got a good audience tonight, and we figured there'd be a lot of people arguing or making wide, expansive statements. And so we're watching the live chat. Give us some questions here to talk about.
And I think we solved it. I think if you encounter someone punching babies in the throat, then you intervene. If they're saying mean things about adult cats, you just let them go right on ahead. Right? Pretty much it.
Cats. Really?
I'll tell you, it's easy to say. It's easy for us to say, well, go take some defensive class, even one defensive class, and get hit in the defensive class. So you know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Fall down on the ground and now try to get up when someone's, on top of you trying to punch you out. And so we talked before we went live, and it's like the classic home defense situation that everyone imagines is the bad guy at the end of the hallway holding a knife up like this, and you're lit well enough that you can see him, and the dog is barking at him, and then he waits patiently while you wake up and find your gun and get the sights organized, and then you shoot him and he falls down, and the police come and thank you and shake your hand, and then you're on the news, and then you win the lottery. Except it's never like that.
Yeah. Or stands there like a B-27.
Yep.
I am a criminal.
That's a B-27 as a target. If you don't know that police have always historically used for qualifications. You're right, though. They all in the movies, they all stand like a B-27 target.
That's funny. Well, I'll tell a quick story that we've told in our classes a lot, and it involves said, my best buddy, my best friend, my wingman is Ken Campbell from Gunsight. He's the CEO out there, but we were baby cops together, and we were always doing stuff, going to schools, flying to the SHOT Show, just all kinds of stuff. So there was a time, and this has a lot of lessons like the story you told, Tom. We were sitting in a plane, and generally we sat on aisle seats, but this time I was like one aisle behind him. We were on a red eye out to Vegas, and this was immediately prior to 9/11. So people weren't all that shook up about terrorism, but there was some chatter about it. Well, anyway, being a red eye, everybody's half asleep, and back then I couldn't sleep on planes very well. Well, Ken's the kind of guy, as soon as we push out of the gate, he goes into heavy drool, with the drool stalactites. Well, anyway, we're halfway through the flight, and I see a stewardess walk up and kneel down next to him and kind of touch him and wake him up. That's unusual. Okay. So now I'm like, wonder what this means. And I see her say something, and I see Ken go from this to, and then she says something else. And then he kind of does this, and she says one more thing, and he looks at me, and just by his body language, and I'm thinking now, okay, the tangos are on the plane. We're going to shoot a bunch of them. We're going to go into McCarran. They're going to have a press conference. Here's the guys, penthouse suite at the Luxor. Here's $10,000 to gamble with. And then Ken kind of goes, and I'm like, what? So he gets up out of his seat, and he goes, well, the lady came up and said, are you Ken Campbell? And he said, yeah. And that was the first, and she goes, are you a police officer? And he said, yeah. She said, are you the armed police officer? Because we were flying armed, which it was legal. And I could read his body language. And she goes, oh, good. Well, we've lost the paperwork. Do you know where the other armed officer in the aircraft is? And he's like, yeah, right back there. But the interesting takeaway here was not another soul on that plane saw that little drama play out. So what does that say about situational awareness of people? If there had been a problem there, would anybody else have seen that or known something was going on? Just nobody paid any attention. Now after September 11th, damn good and well, people be beating you to death with your shoes, even if you were the good guy, because something's going on. And now we've gotten back to that complacency that, whatever, I don't care. Let me put my earbuds in. So a lot of lessons to be learned there, but I thought we were gonna be on the cover of Guns Magazine and Soldier of Fortune and the Nightly News, and we were the guys that took care of that problem over the skies of.
Was Bruce
Las
Willis
Vegas.
in first class on that flight?
If I'd
You could
seen
all
that, I'd have
teamed
been
up.
really worried.
Made a whole new Christmas movie.
Exactly.
I read of one. It was a attempted terrorist hijacking. It was in a small inter-island plane in the Philippines, like with 20 passengers on it. And what they did was, when this happened, there was one terrorist. The passengers killed him, cut him up with his own machete, and threw him out of the airplane. And then the stewardess opened up the bar, and everybody, by the time they landed, was pretty soused. It's an absolutely true story. They're not making that up.
God.
I know. And
I
let
don't see a
that be a
problem with it.
lesson.
I don't see a
No, well,
problem.
that's it. We're all like going, okay, that's cool. And then if you fly that airplane, there's like a little terrace, painted on the side next to the cockpit. It's,
Wow.
I don't know if there
It's
is
like
that.
something out of
I
a
think
James
maybe.
Bond movie.
I was just guessing about that, So
Next time I'm getting on a plane, and I know you're flying next week, Tom, I have a little thing that other people do this when I'm standing on the ramp getting ready to actually physically step in the plane. I always touch the outside of the plane, and I don't know why I did that, but I always do. It's just a little weird thing I do, but I do always look, just around the plane, just for whatever reason, because you usually get stopped there. I think, Tom, take a picture at that point, and then we've got Photoshop skills. I'd like to see a little, terrorist with a circle, or, kind of like on the World War II bombers.
Maybe I'll be flying on that plane next week.
That would
It
be
could happen.
cool.
It could happen.
that's funny. Well, let's expand that a little bit, though, to have it be that need for personal awareness, and Brent, because that's part of what we're talking about. Should you get involved? Well, really, if you had good personal awareness, you may have been aware of what was going on already and would be gone.
Yep.
And so
I would say that's why I've
you-
not been forced to make a lot of those last second decisions, for that very reason, because I watch people, I watch everything. And I think most people that have been in our type of work and in the military, that's a sense you try to develop, that something doesn't look right, doesn't feel right. I think I'm just going to leave this convenience store and go to the next one down the street. And you kind of feel like a dummy doing that. But I've never had to, suddenly go to guns in the middle of a robbery. And there's been a couple of times where it turned out my thought was correct, that the guy hanging out there in the back wasn't there just to get a Diet Pepsi.
Mhm.
It's
Spidey
the
sense is
Spidey
real.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. See, yeah, it's a Spidey sense. We, as cops, we used to say, it was my gut, my gut instinct. But I think people need to credit themselves. It's not your gut instinct. It's a culmination of past experience that you're looking at and for. And then so when you see the guy that looks like a crystal guy, and he's driving a 1972 Oldsmobile with rusty fenders and a loud muffler, with full of trash, and you see that he's yelling in the car at nobody, and then he pulls up next to you at the stoplight. Well, now you should have some sense of, what's going on here. And so you should reach over and lock your door, right? And so
Yep.
that's where situational awareness maybe prevents a bad thing happening later on.
Mhm.
Two comments here that I want to talk about. One's not really funny. It's hello from Canuckistan, which I assume means Canada. Says never lose your 2A. Well, yes, we can't lose our 2A, and I think it could happen this year if we don't all get out and vote. So, hate to bring the crowd down, but we got to get out and vote here in November. So, the other one was Ray is talking about his, long story short, his son dealt with a situation. He gave the couple of bad guys the cop stare, and they veered off. And that works too. You never want to be challenging people, but if you got your typical mope looking around and he's kind of like, looking at you, sometimes a good, hard stare of, you want to try me, pal? It works.
You don't have to be the hardest target. You just have to be harder than the other one.
You have to look like you're the hardest target.
Mhm.
Have you ever
Yeah.
read those studies where they interview burglars and thieves and robbers and whatnot in prisons? And that's a common theme. That's what they're looking for, the volunteer victim. What Clint Smith used to say: if you look like food, you will be eaten. And so when you're walking down the road and you're that mope guy that Tom was talking about, so your shoulders are rolled forward, you're staring down at the ground, or just as bad at your phone, and you're in amongst people. Well, you're looking like food, Jack, but if you look up, stand up straight and look people in the eye, that they just go, the bad guys they interview, they say, yeah, I'm not going to take that guy on. There's too many other easy targets,
Exactly.
It's like hardening your house. They don't burglarize the houses with bars and bright lights. They go to the next one that's probably got an unlocked door. So be the person with bars and bright lights.
Yep. Or a lot of those signs that say survivors will be shot, or trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot again. But neighbor, that tends to limit visits by your neighbors, though.
Yeah, it is true. But I think if I was a burglar and that sign was on the front door, I would go, I'll go to the house next
Maybe
door.
not the easiest house to.
Exactly. Says, yeah, we hate guns and, free
zone sign out in the yard, right?
Yeah.
So take that as a lesson. You put a Biden sign in your front yard that's just saying, come take my stuff. It's I'm a victim. I'm food. Come and get it. We shouldn't talk about politics, but it's
if we beat this one to death.
To that. I mean, how do you become a volunteer victim? I can't relate to that. Why would someone knowingly open themselves up to things like that? I don't understand that at all.
I know, but we probably wouldn't have had jobs if it wasn't for a lot of that. And like you said, they're volunteer victims. It's almost as if they're saying, please come and harm me and take all my stuff because I don't care enough about myself. And it's a lot of ignorance too. But the nice thing is, gun folks, if you're watching this, you're not going to be a victim, I don't think. Or if you are, at least you're going to see it coming and you can acquit yourself admirably. We don't always win every fight, but at least you'll have a fighting chance. So guys, it is 8:48. Any parting thoughts, final words of wisdom, any toast to the regiment or anything? My glass is empty.
The fact that somebody's listening to this means they're interested, and that even if we're not the smartest guys in the world, hopefully some things we've said will get them thinking, and so be thinking about, do what Brent said, talk to your family about, what do we need to do if there's an emergency, get all that down. Just like, I know everybody here has a fire escape plan at home, right?
Of course you do.
So it should be something just like that.
Yep.
Well, Roy, I would steal, my big takeaway is your point about you are your family's executive protection. That's a great way to look at it, because that really drives a lot of decision making in this whole arena of, do you get involved in other people's issues, and that's a big factor right there.
Yeah,
that's a good, thank you. And I appreciate it. I think it does make sense. And it's really what Tiger's point was in that article was, do you risk everything? And as Brent said, an executive protection person doesn't risk anything. His goal is to get out of it with his client. And so don't risk anything, get out of it with your client, and your client's probably your wife and kids.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Having said that, if you see me getting my butt kicked on the side of the road, please stop, because I am delicate and perhaps a bleeder. I don't know.
I think we're not supposed to get involved. That's
we're not supposed to get
except
involved.
For me, you must save the editor. I can't go down with the ship. So anyway, well, again, you guys got we were serious world premiere tonight, americancop.com. A lot of cool stuff there. It's going to get even cooler as things go along. And I'm telling you, these t-shirts, the other thing, and we didn't talk about this, it's a limited time deal, which I don't quite understand. It's something we worked out with the t-shirt manufacturer, but you've only got till like the end of this month. And actually it's even shorter than that. Do you remember the day, Tom? But
I don't remember the day.
If you want to defund the mass media, we support the blue, or a Guns Magazine or American Handgunner shirt, you got to get them ordered, and you got to do it like right now. So we'll put that in the show notes as soon as I'm done, and we do all of our uploady stuff. And the easiest way is check out americancop.com, and it's right there at the tip top. And you guys know something that the rest of the world doesn't, which is we are now open for business. So unless there is anything else for the good of the regiment, gentlemen, I would like to say thanks for joining us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, share us on social media, all that stuff. Our audience keeps growing, and it's going to turn into a juggernaut of gun talk one of these days. So we appreciate everybody joining us and chatting, and please share us far and wide. We like to tell people this is the best gun show you've never heard of. So let's try and change that. So on behalf of very extraordinary gentleman, Roy Huntington, and American Handgunner editor, Tom McHale, it's 8:51 p.m. here on the East Coast, and my throat is getting dry, and I'm Guns Magazine editor, Brent Wheat. So we will see you next week at the same bat time, same bat channel. Have a good week, everybody.
Sounds good.